open. Mr. Heath Jones, do you mind praying over us, sir?
Let us pray. Dear Lord, thank you for this opportunity to gather this evening. I ask that you please be with all the board members and leadership in Madison County as we discuss important business on behalf of the students of Madison County. Please be with all of us as we leave this evening. And in his name, amen.
Amen. Informational items, Mr. Superintendent.
Yes, we have the Tennessee Valley Authority STEM Grant Awards this evening. Mr. Brown here, Ms. Chapman.
Running a little late, but they're coming.
Okay, you want to go ahead and move them? We can go ahead and have the student services do theirs first? Okay, we'll go ahead and move the student services first in front of the Tennessee Valley Authority STEM Grants and Student Code of Conduct and the Parent-Student Handbook. Ms. Lewis?
Good evening, all. Yeah, I just click right and left, right? Okay, just making sure. All right, so we have gone through with our equity, our discipline consultant, and we talked about some of the areas that we needed to maybe, to improve for our upcoming year. So we looked at some of the recommendations that she had given us, and one of those was to reduce our levels from having 6 levels to 5 levels. So with that, we looked at removing our local codes, but we didn't necessarily get rid of them. We just split them between our teachers, which are our classroom management ones, and our class 1 minors. And then we also looked at revising our progressive discipline charts, and also we didn't really change any of our definitions. We just cleared up some of those terminologies. On the left, throughout this PowerPoint, everything that is on the left is what is currently in our code of conduct, but everything that is on the right is a revision. So if you have any questions about it, just stop me and ask. But I've also made it where everything that is on our right is highlighted. So as you see, we started in 23, 24. There were 6 levels. We've divided those into 5. So on the left, that is currently what our classroom management offenses look like. On the right, we've made some adjustments. Some of those adjustments, include on the right side. Originally in the local codes, do you mind if I move around? Is that okay if I move? Is that okay or no? So I can see. Is that good? That's okay. I can try to do it from here. It's just I'm used to wearing my contacts and these glasses are bothering me. I'm sorry. So many of the things that are on the left side that we've moved over here to the right, horse playing was actually it was actually already a class management offense, but I highlighted it. I think maybe I had my glasses on and I didn't realize it. But we've also moved to class management, inappropriate physical contact. We've moved over minor disruptions in a classroom, tardiness to a class, and then we've also moved verbal disrespect or language. Those previously were in local codes, but they've been moved over to a classroom management offense. Any questions on that? All right, the progressive discipline chart, originally what's on the left is what our teachers are currently using, but what's on the right, we've added some additional steps that our teachers can use. It doesn't mean that they have to do all of those things. It just gives them an opportunity to be able to have some additional steps that they can use. As you can see, for a second behavior before a parent phone contact was not required, but it is now. So we're trying to give the students an opportunity to build more relationships with their teachers before calling home within that first behavior, but in the second one, it is required for them to contact home. Other than that, many things kind of stayed the same. Question?
So currently, the first behavior is not on the new chart is not a parent contact, correct?
No, sir.
Okay.
It is a reminder to the student, basically pulling the student aside and talking to them before jumping in, and calling home, unless it's an offense that needs to warrant calling home. Anyone else? Class 1 minors, let's flip over. In the Class 1 minors, we also moved some of our local codes to this one. Everything that is highlighted within this one was before in our local codes, but they have now been moved over to our Class 1 offense. The only thing that is different, and that is my error, is down here, where it looks like it's a little off under threats and intimidation. That one is a note that it needs to be moved because we've actually moved it over to a class management offense. So it just needs to be deleted. Question? Okay. All right, so the progressive discipline chart is actually, so on the left, we had one sheet. On the right, we have expanded it some, so now it is in two, so it's based, so with that in mind, it's a lot more things that our school leaders would have to do once this offense has gone from a class level to a administrator level. Many of those include like the contacts to a parent added, and it is required versus it before it just said that that you could contact a parent, but now it says that it is required to. Class 2, intermediate ones. On the right, what we have here is we've continued using our current state definitions, and then we've added some clarity to our Class 2 immediate, behaviors. So they haven't changed, but it just provided a little more clarity. For example, in fighting, we added fighting is not a verbal confrontation. So we ended up making sure that we gave our leaders and our teachers an opportunity to make it a little more clearer. Questions? This one didn't change much. The only thing that changed within our Class 2 offenses is that those contacts are required. Because at a Class 2 level, we're getting closer to a disciplinary hearing level. So we felt that parents needed to know at each level what is taking place. And then we didn't change the fourth behavior. It stayed the same. Any questions on this one?
Just,
Yes,
can
sir.
you give us an example of a Class 2 offense or discipline?
Okay, so disorderly conduct. Disorderly conduct, previously, there is a Class 2 offense for it, and there's a Class 3 offense for it. In the Class 2, it is something that disrupts the environment. So it's something where children get to fighting. We'll just use that as an example. And it didn't interrupt the environment where anyone was injured intentionally, then they could suspend them just at the school level. But if it was as it is now, disorderly says with arrest Well, we don't arrest students, but what happens is it has disrupted the environment totally, that someone was injured. So now it lets you know that it's no longer a offense that the school that they can suspend for, whether it be 2 days or 3 days. Now it comes up to a class 3. So we have tried to make it where they can see the differences between it being at a school level versus it coming up to a 3 level. Any other ones you want me to know? Other examples? Okay. All right, class 3, those are those offenses that come up to see me. So those offenses, what we've done is pretty, the only ones that we've kind of added in is we've given a little more direction for items like defiance. So defiance of authority previously was a repeated offense. Well, now you can, if it's a repeated, offense, we want to see some level of documentation. So whether it's you've had parent conferences, you have referred a child for PST, you have had some form of interventions. So before you can refer a child for that, you must present some level of interventions. Then we have gone through, originally fighting at the class 3 level said any repeated. Well, what that did was if it was a repeated, let's say the first day of school, you have a major fight or something. Well, at a 3 level, as it is now, it says it has to be a repeated. Well, now you may take a risk of not having it where you can send a child in for it, but now with removing that, if it interrupts the environment, then they could. So we remove that terminology. Profanity, we cleared it up some more where it just said it was just direct usage. We made it a little clearer. Any questions? And criminal behaviors, it was the same. The only thing that was different is originally sale, and it just said sale for drugs, but transfer is also a criminal offense. So we added the words transfer in it. And then before it said and or an injury, we just put any injury. So we kind of cleared up discrepancies on criminal offenses. There were no changes in our bus code of conduct, and the updates in our parent and student handbook. Many of those things are informational. They are just changing of calendar, changes of names, just directory things. There weren't, and then our policies, we're updating those tentatively. So any other policy changes, that gets approved will also go in our handbook. Any questions?
I just got a quick question. So, if a student brings a cell phone and the school decides not to allow cell phones, where is that? Is that a managed school code, or where does that fit in?
Cell phone usage.
Yes.
So cell phone usage is in a classroom management, offense, but if if it is becoming an issue, so I'm gonna go back to that one. Just go back to a classroom managed offense, if you don't mind. So if we went back to an offense, and let's say the first time the teacher told the child that put your phone up, they just talked with them, it's not bothering. Then the second time it happened again, then it progressively there. We get to a 5th time, it goes over to a class 1 offense. So cell phone usage does start out as a classroom managed, but it can escalate just like any other offense. And it's guided by the current policy about cell phones. Anything else? If nothing, I appreciate you all. You know how to find me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, come on up, Ms. Chapman. Yeah, thanks. You're helpful. This is our TVA Community Relations Specialist, correct?
I'm government relations specialist,
government
but we're all on the same team.
Oh,
yes.
okay. And so this is
Ellen
our
Reed is my
Tennessee
name.
Valley Authority STEM Grant Awards this evening.
Yeah, so
Thank you for joining us this evening.
thank you for having us, and I'll be super brief, but I did want to share some stats on this program before we award the teachers. We are excited to award 4 grants this year to Madison County Schools. And since 2018, TVA, in partnership with our retiree organization, BVI, and our local power companies, we've awarded nearly $6 million in STEM grants to support K through 12 educators across our 7-state region. This year, out of 715 applicants, 343 K through 12 schools were awarded a STEM grant, and that's an increase of more than 100 additional recipients from last year. So the program keeps growing and building momentum. 69 of those 343 schools were in North Alabama, and 4 of those here in Madison County Schools. With me tonight, I've got Imani Lockhart with TVA, and we've got Gary Whitley from Huntsville Utilities. Want to thank them for their partnership. And got Shan McMillan from Senator Britt's office, Trey Daniel from Congressman Strong's office, and I see Chairman Mac McCutcheon here as well. So we thank them for all their support of this program. And we will go ahead and get started with Central School. And the teacher who applied for that grant is Jamie Smith. If she wants to come on up.
Y'all want to do it up front here in front of the?
Yeah, we'll just do a photo op. This one was for $2,500.
You want to come back here or go back?
And I'll have Imani call out the other 3. Unless you want to get the picture with us?
Never mind.
Right, you want to go?
Okay, next we have Sparkman 9th grade school for $5,000, and the teacher there is Kelly Dice. Dice, did I say that right? Is it 5? Okay. Meridianville Middle School, Brandy Glenn for $5,000. not least, Hazel Green High School for $5,000, and the teacher there is Miss Teresa Hodge. Do we have anyone
I was gonna say, my husband teaches at Hazel Green, I'll have him send it to her. Yeah. She will.
We really appreciate it very much. Mac, how you doing, sir? We appreciate Tennessee Valley Authority and what they do to support the school system. Thank you so much. All right, you ready to move on?
Did we look at the handbook, the parent-student handbook, or we?
I did the last slide. If you want me to go back, I can go back and do it.
We're still working.
Okay. Got you. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. Thank you.
All right. Are we ready, sir?
Yes, sir.
All right. Salary schedule updates. As you know, the ETF is in the final day of our legislative session, so we are expecting some form of passage here. It's in committee right now. And there's 2 more days after today for the session, which is tomorrow and Thursday. So that's one of the key responsibilities of the legislation is to pass the ETF and the state budget. So we are expecting that. As of right now, it appears that a 2% raise is what's in the budget. So looking at the salary schedule so that we can start getting this moving forward, and we need to get this to policy review as well so that they can have a chance to look at it. I wanted to kind of go through what the changes are, the proposed changes. And so in the teacher salary matrix, there would be whatever the legislative action is, which is the 2%. And the 2% is, so far, it's for all public school employees, both certified and support. So that would go across the board for the 2% there. It is not put on supplements, longevity, or incentive pay. It's just on the base pays and the advanced degrees. On page 1A, you know, when we changed to the new salary schedule, as people are coming off the old one, they're Xing out the old one. So step 5 would be Xed out there. As far as on page 3 and page 4, where it says principals and central office administrators, we're changing the word incentive to advanced degree pay, because advanced degree is what we have to pay on the state, because we're funded from the state for advanced degrees and the bases. So on page 5, the nurses, X out step 14, because that no longer applies. And then for the OTs and behavior assistants, change also there where it says incentive to advanced degree pay, because they're also paid on their advanced degrees. On page 10, auxiliary teacher assistants. So this was something that's always been grant funded, and the grant now supports them actually having steps. There's always been the solid just base, and so whatever that base was, that's what they would stay at. So talking with federal programs and all, we can go ahead and put them on steps from 0 to 10, just like all the other assistants and instructional people, so that way they'll have a band that they can work off of, but it's still grant funded. There's no cost to the board. There's not a change there. The social workers, they also went to the old salary schedule. We're Xing out step 9. As far as our bus drivers, This is one of our new changes. Everything up to this point has all been clerical. There's been no changes other than what the state gave. But here, our activity pay was structured so the first 2 hours when they had to miss a half-day route, which was the afternoon route typically, they were getting $22. Well, as the pay has been increased by the legislation, we didn't change that activity pay, so they were actually losing money. They were, so what we want to do is we want to make sure that we change it from the $26 an hour to 35, because that hasn't been changed over several salary schedules. So this means the first 2 hours when they're doing an activity run, the first 2 hours are at $70, but they're being docked a half day's pay because they're not running the afternoon route. So this basically offsets that, and then they will work for their normal route pay after that. So this is just to make sure that they don't lose any money for when they have to miss a half day of pay because they're running an activity run. So that's from 26 to 35. Then a couple other additions that we were looking at. One of the things that came up is our bands. Our bands have gotten quite large, and we basically have had one band director working with these bands that are in excess of 100, 150, 200 students. And it's a lot of bodies and a lot of logistics for one person to handle. So what we want to do, we asked the principals, not principals, the band directors, what they thought was an appropriate number to add for an assistant. And we got everything from 70 to 150, 75 to 150. So at 100 students seem to be the most popular. So what we'd like to do is add an assistant band director to all the bands that have at least 100 students in their band membership. That way they have an assistant there to help with the supervision when they're, either at competitions, ball games, or, they have different, their competitions, their state and what is it where they go to the
Competition?
yeah, do you remember? I don't remember what exactly it's specifically called, but they have a name for where, it's basically their activities where they actually compete against the other bands in the areas. So that's what the assistant band director would be for bands of 100 or plus students. We had, Scholars Bowl was making $1,000 for their activities, and we had drama, flag corps, and choral, which had more after school duties, and they were all making $600. So what we want to do is equate those core curriculars and extracurriculars so that they're all the same. So we want to raise those supplements from $600 to $1,000. So that's what drama, flag corps, and choral is. The salary schedule for daycare you guys already approved. And then the certified rates, sub rate would be the 2% that is, we do a daily rate for bachelor step 0. So that would be, the 2% would go on the certified sub rate. So as you can see, we really have not changed much on the salary schedule. The ones that basically it's in the supplements, and it's also in the little bit with the bus drivers.
So I agree wholeheartedly with the band. I'm just curious, and I know the answer, I think, but the 2% that we're doing for the certified subs, that is not state funded. That's coming out of local or our funds somewhere. Correct? When the state says they're giving a 2% raise to all certified teachers and all employees, they are not including subs. So us doing a 2% raise for subs is us doing a 2% raise for subs. Gotcha.
In Ms. Bates, what we do is we take bachelor step 0 and we divide it to get the daily rate. So it really, the figure is changing by 2% from what it is now. We're not really actually giving it, we're basically, I just wanted to indicate that that would be a change of 2%
Yeah.
there.
I just thought for some parents that may be confusing.
Yeah,
That the state is giving 2% and we are raising 2%. They're two separate 2%s.
correct.
Of percents of 2.
Yes, ma'am.
So the band director, the band director, if a band is sitting at, say, 90, 92, 93 students right now, what is it 100 plus, like it does, where you start, if they're within a window of plus or minus 5% or something, is there any kind of,
We set it at 100 plus. Now, going back down, you would have to go down like we do with our APs, where it would have to be consecutive years. So if you drop to like 96 the next year, we wouldn't reduce that. You know, it would have to be multiple years in a row that you were below the 1,000 or the 100 kids in order to take the band director away.
gotcha,
But yeah, to start at 1,000, as long as you're at as long as you're at 100 kids, not 1,000, 100 kids, then you will get the band director, which right now I believe would be all three of our large high schools.
okay.
That's what I was about to ask. So, do you, off the top of your head, do you know, off the top of your head, a kind of a number that the high schools have as far as students in band?
The Buckhorn and Sparkman, I believe, are both over the 200 mark. Hazel Green is around the 135, 140 mark, and County and New Hope are right around anywhere from 50 to 70. Based on last year's band numbers.
So they wouldn't, like those two high schools wouldn't be eligible for this?
No, not until they get to 100. And like I said, we asked the band directors because we wanted their input, what they thought would be an adequate number for them to get that second person.
So this is just a $3,000 supplement for a band, assistant band director. This is not, I mean, I guess it could be a teacher that's already at the school, but this could also be somebody who's just acting band, you know, an assistant to the
Like
band.
a coach's aide type.
Coach's aide or something.
It would be whatever the band director would go through the school and make that recommendation. It's a supplement, so it could be treated the same way as the coaching supplement.
Gotcha, okay.
So if they had somebody that wasn't a teacher but was a specialist in, you know, in a percussion or something like that, that they wanted to add to their staff, that was gonna, but it is gonna be their right-hand person in order to assist with any kind of supervisory duties. And they'd be acting under the direction of the band director, who was a certified staff member. In some cases, you know, it may very well be the middle school person or, you know, the feeders to or from.
That's another question. What if the high school is using that same person for both? Like, if the high school person is doing the middle schools as well? Does that,
I think there's a middle school band supplement already. So if they're doing both of them, then they would qualify for both those supplements because they're two different groups. Now, if it's all being created under one band, then it'd be the greater of the two.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna ask, is New Hope or Madison, New Hope specific, are they 7 through 12 band, do you know? Or is it,
so yeah, New Hope High School is 7 through 12.
okay, and they're not at 100, they're at 70
I,
or so.
I text the principal, I was gonna get the actual number, but I guess I can find out tonight or tomorrow.
Yeah, we
Maybe
did.
close at New Hope, I don't know. I mean,
Yeah.
7 through 12, it may be actually pretty close to 100, I'm not sure.
I've just heard from them, I've heard from some of the parents out there and and the band director that they were needing a little help too, because they were having to do both. But I'll get the exact number.
Alex, you know off the top of your head, as far as the instructional piece, as far as they,
But if this says assistant band director 9 through 12, it still kicks them out because they're 7 through 12, right? Or-
no, we would put them in they'd be in they'd be in, theirs would be a 712 total number. It
Okay.
wouldn't be, so like if New Hope got 101, they would get the band director, the assistant. Because their school is 7 through 12. What we were trying to do was, with the 912, we were trying to indicate that this is for the high school band and not a middle school band getting an additional assistant. That's why the 912's on there.
Gotcha.
So those are the proposed changes, and we're gonna send that off to policy review for them to look at. Like I said, there's very little that we're doing to the salary schedule. A few clerical things, but The main thing is the couple supplements, and the bus driver is the biggest piece to make sure that they're not losing any money. Any other questions on that? All right, we'll send that off to policy review for them to review. A couple policy updates. These will also have to go to policy review. The first one is student ranking. We had a Zoom meeting with our high school principals and asked them to determine whether, we're a non-ranked system. So the honors that are established by our high schools are left up to the principals. And we've run into a problem where we have different schools doing different things. We have some recognizing the top 5%, and we have some recognizing the top 10%. So, one of the things that we wanted to do is we wanted to uniform that. While we're still a non-ranked system, and we still want our principals to have the autonomy to recognize specific honors that are unique for their schools, we do want to have the ranking system the same as far as what the percentages we're going to recognize. And so we had a Zoom call, each had a vote, asked them whether they wanted to do 5 or 10% or some other combination, 7, whatever they wanted to do. And it was 4-2, 10% is what they wanted to do. And I told them, I said, it doesn't matter to me what we want to do, but whatever the majority says, that's what we're going to go with. So 10% is what has been recommended. 4 out of the 6 said 10%. So what we want to do is we want to change this policy so it basically says while we're a non-ranked system, each school recognizes the top 10% of the graduating class based on the weighted cumulative percentage of GPA. Discretion is still left up to each high school principal to establish special honors in addition to these guidelines. The honor insignia worn during graduation may include the insignia that represents the designated special honor and the National Honor Society. No other types of insignia will be permitted unless authorized by the school principal. So this way, they still have the autonomy to go ahead and recognize what they would like to. But as far as a district, we're non-ranked, but we will recognize the top 10% of each graduating class. And one of the reasons we went to non-ranking system was because it gives our students a greater opportunity to compete for scholarship money. When you don't recognize and class rank them, there's not a salutatorian and a valedictorian. So all those kids can compete for more scholarship opportunities instead of it just being specific for those classifications. So that's the reason why we're non-ranked, and this will recognize the top 10%.
So make sure I understand you right, correct. So a ranked school district gives less scholarship opportunity for students.
They have specific scholarship opportunities for salutatorian and valedictorian. And in the non-ranked system, we don't have that, so they can compete for those. They can still put their hats in the ring for those. So it gives them greater opportunity by not being a ranked system. Okay. Opens up more opportunities for more money. And we've always, we've been in non-ranked for years. This just puts instead of it leaving up to the principals as to what we're going to do, 5% or 10%, this will set it across the board that in Madison County, we'll recognize top 10%.
Last question about that. Do you know what the original reason why we went non-ranked? Was it that reason, or was it another reason from going from ranked to non-ranked?
Mr. Curry, that would have been back. It's been this way since like 2000. The 90s and 2000s, so I don't know who actually changed it from a ranked to a non-ranked, but ever since I've been in this district, we've been in a non-ranked system. That's what was explained to me, that with not having valedictorians and salutatorians, it allowed all those students, because you can't say whether they were or not that position, because you're recognized as in that top 10%. Doesn't mean out of that, let's say we have a class of 100 graduating, they're still 1 through 10, but all 10 are in that top tier. And so since you don't have 1 and 2, now you got 10 kids that can compete for that instead of 2.
Is there an effective date on the policy change?
This one here, this
the
The-
board approves it in May, you've got a graduation like the next week. That's what I was asking.
No, this has got to go to policy review. This won't be till next year.
Okay, so you'll like approve it in June.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yeah, this is not something that we're doing immediately. It's gonna have to go to policy review. They're gonna have to vet it, and then we'll have to get their input and bring it back. I'm just giving it to you, since graduations are around the corner and that we're looking at making this change for next year. I mean, it's hard to believe that we'll be graduating, by this time in 2 weeks, we'll already be halfway through our graduations. And before we know it, we're gonna be back here and school's gonna be starting. So we're trying to get a heads up and a jump start on policies that need to be updated before yes, Daniel?
When they changed the ranking to non-ranking, was based on advanced classes, and we started to weight classes more. GPAs didn't start to calculate, so you would automatically be this if you took a few more advanced classes, or, so there was no way to compare it. And so that's when they went away from the ranking students, because kids learn more by taking
Sure,
AP classes.
sure.
And so it created this discrepancy. So
Right.
they would do a non-ranking.
So you would load up on those classes to get your ranking higher to, yeah, okay. I was just wondering, I see school systems, and every once in a while, every couple of years, somebody asks me that question, like, why don't you have a valedictorian? Why don't you have a salutatorian? It just randomly comes up, usually around graduation time, usually high-performing parents or students that have parents that have that question. And they're like, well, this school system does it. And so I haven't had a real solid answer, but I'm glad, thank y'all for the feedback. It kind of helps me fill that out a little bit.
Principal can do that, correct, with a valedictorian?
No.
They cannot? Okay.
Yeah, as far as the district, we don't have those positions and we don't have a ranking system. It's just like, if you have 300 graduating, the top 10% would be your top 30.
Yeah.
And it would be alphabetically in graduation from A to Z. If it's not like 1 through 30.
I don't know what the trend is. Is it in Alabama? Do you know? I mean, we could find out. Do you know the percentage of districts that have that structure versus don't have that structure?
I don't have those. I don't have that.
Just be curious. I understand what y'all are saying. Makes sense. I hear that question enough that makes me wonder, but thank y'all for the feedback.
All right. The next policy is, we have Mr. McMicken with us this evening. Scott, thanks for joining us. Principal of the Madison County Virtual Academy. These have all been sent to you already, and there's a couple of policies that we're looking at. We've had several meetings with Scott, Mr. Hughes, Mr. Evans, and I, and Mr. Perkins was in some of those as well. And these are some issues that are happening with the virtual school. The first policy is real easy, and that is a change from it being a 512 school to a 612 school, which, we had only 15 that, and that doesn't even generate a unit. So those 15 are in 6. Do you have a 6th grade number yet?
Right now, we have 15 fifth graders, so, and it's been 12, 13, 15 with that group coming up. There'll be 6th graders next year. Right now, we have right at 50 6th graders, but I'm hoping this 15 turns into 50 next year. We'll see, but so far, this group has been, 15 or less the entire time.
And this also, now that they're 612, they can do more of a middle school model for 6-8, and then you got your seniors. So it will help also with staffing wise, because they'll be able to use some coaches for remediation stuff, but they'll also be able to hire more secondary people, because they'll be able to, teach all the way from 6 to 12. So that should also make things a little bit better there. So that's the first one. That's current policy 7.13.1. This is where it gets a little bit more in depth, and this is the current policy. And one of the things that we're finding, and Mr. McMicken has some data. Did you bring your data, Scott?
Yes, so this is just our Q4 enrollment. These are the students that came in just over spring break. I've taken all the names off. But you can see the school they're from. You can see their demographics as far as how many days they've missed, their discipline referrals, number of failed courses. It's really astonishing when you look at their the attendance issues and the truancy issues. We've got a ton of kids at their first day coming in after spring break that Monday. They're already truant, and they've never stepped foot on our campus before. And so they're already truant. And on this, I think there were around 60 that came in just in Q4. If they're this year, 5th through 8th or 11th grade, we had to turn around and test them within the next 2 weeks because we had ACAP and ACT testing. So it's a constant revolving door. This is every quarter so far, this number of students coming in with these types of issues. It works for some, and it doesn't work. A lot of the students who are coming in with the major truancy issues, failing courses, it's just not working for them. And like I said, we're getting sent a lot of those, whether it be they are hearing something in the local school. I don't know why they're coming to virtual school, but I think when they hear virtual, they're thinking COVID virtual, and that's what they're wanting to go to.
So what's the actual policy change you're trying to change?
Okay, so instead of having 4 entry points, which would be beginning of the year, second quarter, semester, and fourth quarter, which we've already changed the fourth quarter one. The first one is the second yellow bullet there on 713.2. You'll see where it says, due to the nature of the virtual academy program and existing Madison County School students may only transfer, and we're talking about students who are transferring from one of our current schools to the virtual school, not somebody who moves in that's a brand new move-in. They can go to whatever school they want, and that doesn't change. But they would be able to enroll during the summer enrollment period or at winter break. So we'd have 2 enrollment periods, beginning of the year and then also at semester break. Students must request enrollment by the Friday before the first day of school, and then that's for summer. And then for winter, the enrollment, the students must request it by the second Friday in December. Remember, when they start, it's not like a regular school where they go and they may be there 3 or 4 days while they're getting their schedule worked out. When they start there, the first day, they have their courses are opened up and they have to start working. So what it's looking at, so what the intent here is to have a summer enrollment, which is beginning of the year, and then a semester enrollment. So then you go to the, and then if the next one is seniors or students in the current graduating cohort must transfer into the Madison County Virtual School, they must be on track to graduate and must already have their CCR. CCR is mandated by 2028, and it's easier for them to get it. They're more limited at the virtual school to get their CCR. So this way, they're eligible to be graduates instead of coming in and basically being a senior and have 4 credits. So those are the 2 big changes. The other piece is about good standing, and we'll talk about that in a minute, but those are the 2 big pieces. Ms. Bates?
Can you just kind of refresh my memory of what the original intent of having a virtual academy was for? What is our vision and mission with a virtual academy?
It started out as a program, and it grew into a school.
Here, but there was a point in time where the state mandated that everybody offer a virtual program, and that was pre-COVID, correct?
Right, you had to take a virtual class is what they wanted to make sure everybody took a virtual class because it was the wave of the future. And ours is exponentially growing every year. The problem is that one of the things that with this virtual school is that as it's become more and more rigorous, because the Edgenuity program is we had to set mandates of when they could enter, because if they came in a week late, they were already lot farther than a week behind. Because remember, you got 4 courses and you're taking them virtually. And so if I like mathematics, I'm gonna do my math courses first, and I might not like English, so I'm gonna put English off. Well, if I wait an extra week, now I'm 2 weeks behind in English. And so what they were doing is the courses they didn't like, they were putting them off and they were getting farther and farther behind. Then it became monumental for them to catch up. As far as the actual intent of, I don't know why it transitioned from a from a program to a school. That was Dr. Copeland, or was that Mr. Massey?
Mr. Massey.
Mr. Massey.
Yeah, I recall
You
that.
earned units that way,
They
right?
earned us units.
As
I
an
recall why-
administrator, you earned the
Correct, we
principal.
earned, but it was a program for the longest time. But when it was a program, they had, what, about 200, 300 students in there, max? And now, Scott's, you're pushing, what, 600, 700?
We, our ADM for this year, which we're getting units for next year was 642, but as of this afternoon, we're at 750 something. That's how many students we've gained since basically Q2, Christmas time, and Q4. We've gained 150 students.
I was just trying to remember back to what the purpose, if we're gonna put mandates in place to set parameter, I'm not saying they're wrong or right at this point,
Right.
I'm just saying, at some point you have to look at why we ever decided to be able to do this. Because if we're setting parameters, we have to make sure that they're still inclusive of what the goal of the school was. Or the vision of the school, maybe not the goal per se, because it's not actually measurable, I don't think.
The thing that's probably gonna be important to remember about those parameters is because of the size of that school's becoming, there's no way that he can maintain a passing state report card grade if he gets students that are coming in, not doing the work, if they're truant, and they don't graduate. So if they come to him like behind and don't graduate, that report card score is gonna be impossible to maintain.
Well, they're not doing the work wherever they are. This group
Okay,
of
so
students
but
we're
here's what
talking
I'm
about,
saying.
correct?
If they're scattered out among the other schools, those students, 10 or 15 of each school, don't pull those schools' report card grades down by 10s or 12s or 20 points. When you put that many of those students in that school, it will destroy that report card grade for that school.
So, I mean,
That makes sense, because
It
they'll be
does.
more watered down.
yeah,
You're basically moving a portion of the denominator
but,
to a place where it doesn't.
but looking at this list, is that done with some level of intentionality from the school or somebody, telling these parents, hey, this is the best pathway, your kid's not coming to school, just go to virtual. I'm not, it just looks like there may be a steering, if you will, of the parents to do this virtual option, which has never been the intent for a truant and all these, unless they literally have issues where they can't come to school for a variety of reasons, and virtual might be the best option, but it doesn't sound like it's just truant, just not coming to school, not doing the work.
Right, I don't, have I heard students and parents tell me that somebody told them they needed to go to virtual school? Yes.
Okay.
I've heard that, how much is it being done? I don't know. I don't know why that many students at risk are coming to us. And again, that's just fourth quarter. That's not fall break, Christmas.
Right,
And
right.
We're talking, at Christmas time, there were about 120 instead of 60 that came. And now, a lot do leave because they don't like what we're doing either. It's not working for them, so they do go on. Very few go back to their zone school. Most end up going homeschool route or to some other virtual setting. If you look throughout the state, the virtual schools, and that's something we looked at with all the freestanding virtual schools, the ones who are schools, they do have a lot of requirements for students to get in. As far as on graduation, high school, they have to be in good standing already coming in.
Right.
tenth grader has to have a tenth grade credits, to
Right.
get most other schools. The other issue that we're seeing then, is students, you know, they don't like coming and taking some of those state tests, and we're taking hits on those state tests just because they're not coming. Alabama Connections Academy, I talked to someone out there this week, they put it in policy that if they miss their state testing, they will be removed from the Connections Academy because they have a truancy policy now, which is really the second part of it. You're seeing that in all commercial schools. People are now making more of these type policies, because it's becoming an issue.
Well, I recall many years ago having this conversation with Mr. Massey about ensuring that at the time, maybe it was just the virtual program, didn't become a situation where only students with all the challenges would feed into that, which would almost be a alternative school part two, you know, and the goal was never that. The goal is to give, to Ms. Bates' point, the goal is to give those students with unique circumstances an opportunity to still learn at high levels. And it was not ever designed to be for the, and truant kids can come. It's not that they can't, but it shouldn't be a trending of those type of students on a consistent basis. It should happen, but it shouldn't be just almost exclusively those type of students, which is not, but it seems like a high percentage.
And you make a good point, Mr. Curry, that, you know, that there's students that are excelling in something, whether it may be dance or arts or athletics, and they, you know, and I'm not talking about our traditional high school athletics, they may be, you know, Olympian or something like that, and they have to have a schedule that aligns with their. We have kids that have to work, you know, they're providing for their families, and so they have to work, and they can't work in a regular school. This is what the school was designed for, was those type of students. And the school has had some great successes. Two of the last 3 years, national merit finalists came out of the virtual school, you know, so we have some high achieving students there. But what we're trying to do is we're trying to make it so that it's a viable, rigorous school. And one of the things, you know, Mr. Byrd was very clear about was addressing the cheating that's going on, and, you know, how can you make sure cheating is not happening in a virtual setting. And so that's one of the things that's happening now, is that all these students will be required to come in and take their exams in person. They're going to be proctored, and they're going to be required to be in-person exams starting next year, which is already, I don't want to say causing a ruckus, but we've definitely stirred the hornet's nest a little bit with that, and with some of the parents already. We've heard from quite a few about that, them having to come in and take exams. So we're trying to make sure that the students that are going there are getting the best education they possibly can that fits their needs. So that's the intent of why we're having those two changes. Scott, you?
I was just gonna say, I've been telling parents, I've been telling teachers, we are a different type of education. We're never going to ask a student to come in 5 days a week, 7 hours a day. We're never gonna do that, which is required at the local schools. But in order for us to have academic integrity and to make sure students are learning at high levels, there has got to be some responsibility, and they've got to take ownership. The way it has been set up in the past, you just go through the course. If you need help, you ask. Otherwise, we'll see. We passed out caps and gowns last week. We had 200 seniors show up to pick up their caps and gowns. I would say 50% of them I had never laid eyes on. And I've been here for an entire year. And they don't get on Google Meets. They just do their work, and I'm just not for sure that our academic integrity is where it should be.
This is your 4th largest high school, by the way. Now.
Apparently none of them actually had to, I'm just kidding.
And Ms. Bates, you know, you are correct that this is a trending. There are more and more districts that are starting to add a virtual component to their schools. You know, Huntsville's adding one this year. And so it is something that you're seeing more and more of. But that's the whole intent here. The last piece here is about students in good standing. Scott, you want to talk about that, the students in good standing piece?
So again, you know, we talked about them having to come in and take tests so that we can proctor those tests to make sure that they are doing their own work on their tests. And it's not just Googling, it's not just using some type of math app, they're actually having to do the test. But I'm also not just the type of person that says, you know, you can fail this test, we'll see you in 2 weeks, you can fail another one, and we'll just keep going. If you are struggling, it's okay. We're not upset that you're struggling, but if you're struggling, you're going to have to do some things to help. And again, we're never gonna ask them to come in 5 days a week, 7 hours a day, but we have, you know, they have to come in to take tests. Next year, for the most part, they either have to come in 2 days a week, or they have to be on live Google Meets 2 days a week. Morning times, afternoons, worst case scenario, a student in high school, right now, on Mondays and Wednesdays, he would have to be on a Google Meet from 8:30 to 10:30, 2 days a week. A live Google Meet with a teacher on the other end, teaching material. To me, that's not, you know, that's not asking too much of anyone. But now he's interacting with that teacher, we can make sure that learning is going on, and now when he comes in to take the test, we can, you know, we know more about that student now. The teachers know more about that student, and if he struggles on that test, he may have to get on another Google Meet, or he may have to come in, but at least in that situation, you know, we know where he's at now. He's met with us, we understand, and so, you know, remediation is gonna have to be a big part. If you look at our test scores, our state mandated test scores, they're not good, and we've got to do something to address that. So there's requirements to stay in the school, and again, we're not asking anyone to be there every day, all day. That's not, the most you can stay there is 3 hours at a time. We don't let you stay longer than 3 hours, so even if you came in, you know, 3 hours is your maximum time that you can be there. But at the end of the day, if you come to our school and you're not willing to do what it takes, again, if you're excelling, the high school kids, if they're excelling, if they have a 3.0 and can maintain a 3.0, they do not even have to get on those Google Meets. But again, they still have to come in and take those tests. So as long as they're excelling, they don't necessarily need us. But it's just parameters set up that if you're wanting to come to us, this is our rules. And if you're not willing to follow these rules, then at the end of that school year, you would have to go back to your zone school.
Yeah, the other things as far as with students in good standings, it's also to make sure that our students who receive special services, that they're coming to get their service time. That we found out that there was a real lax in whether students were actually receiving the required service time that they needed to have. And so this is gonna make sure that they're there for their service time. If they're in, another point is if they're below grade level, they may be required to come in for tier 3 programs for math and reading, making sure that we're hitting those deficiencies and getting them caught up. Students not meeting the adequate progress and not attending the regular meetings and failing courses, they'll be mandated to attend in person. And according to the procedures set by the virtual academy, these requirements may be from 1 to 5 days a week. And so what this is it's designed that if a student doesn't maintain their good standing, so after a year, it's kind of like a probationary program. So after one whole year, if they're not doing what they're required to do, then they can be removed from the program and sent back to their home school. That's what the in good standing is for. So I wanted you guys to see all that. Again, this has all got to go to policy review as well. But yes, sir.
I got a question. How do we have students with 71 absences from a virtual academy? I mean, are they not signing in, or?
They're coming to you with
They already
71.
had 71.
Oh, they already had
When
71.
they get there.
They were already virtual,
Is that not, I mean, okay.
virtually not there.
But we do have a lot of students, if they don't sign in every day, they're counted absent. Once they get so far behind, we start making them come in for 3 hours a day.
I mean, is there not,
They're not coming in for that, if they can't sign on, they're not coming in. But it's just, you know,
I-
and they do start racking up the absences. So that 71 was at a different school, but, It's not saying that we don't have students that have earned 71 absences.
I'm saying that, okay, for any school in our system, it's a lot of days missed.
Yeah, they go to, they go to student services and they go to our social worker and they can be criminally prosecuted. Ms. Perkins, you're talking about a student that came over virtual that had 71 days at their home school.
Absent, yes.
Absences.
I don't know how you learn with being out 71 days. You really weren't enrolled. I mean,
I don't even think it matters how many is only 19 unexcused though, so I mean, that's a lot of excused absences. That's a lot of copays.
So, and this is just one snapshot of, this is a quarter of the year, basically, of what's coming in, and that's why, so, those are the proposed changes that we
To
have.
be clear,
Yes.
it's a snapshot of what we're trying to create parameters to improve upon. There's a larger group of people that this is very successful for, correct?
You know, I would say for a lot of those kids, it's working better than at their home school. It really is.
Because if we have,
So, and that's the thing, we're not keeping them out. We're not saying if you got 71 absences, you can't come. But we are saying, if you come, these are your rules, and if you know, so don't think you're just coming to get away, to get rid of that 71.
So you can come, but you better perform.
Right.
Okay,
And you've got to play by our rules.
gotcha.
if I hear your numbers correctly, this is about 10% of our students in the virtual program. That if there's 700, this is about 74 kids, so this is about 10% that's,
I would say it's more than that right now, that are coming in like this.
This is just all you have right now, coming in this quarter. This is just coming in from this quarter.
So multiply, probably closer to about 30 to 40%.
So what,
this last page says quarters 2, 3, and 4. This
Ma'am?
last page says quarters 2, 3, and 4.
Yes, ma'am, that's all the enrollments from the other schools, from the major schools in there. There were some more schools that, did not have that, but, you can tell there's a lot of kids coming in each quarter.
would you say roughly around 40% of your children meet this high attendance, high truancy threshold?
I would say the ones that come in during the year, about half of those have truancy issues already.
Okay. And just out of curiosity, I mean, before they come here, I mean, is the reason identified because they're having do we know the reason for the truancies other than they're just not coming to school? I mean, that's a bigger concern. Obviously, that's a concern because they can't learn when they're not at school. It's a concern from documentation and report card standard. You know, they grade us on attendance. Is there, I understand all these, but has there been a deep dive as to why these kids aren't, I mean, I know it's varied, but is there a trend as to why they're not coming to school at their home school before they even come to virtual?
Ms. Perkins, is there anything from student services that you might be able to address that question?
I don't have the data in front of me, but there's any number of reasons for students, not coming. I don't think there's any one, big smoking bullet that we can kind of see that determine that, but there is, a lot of different reasons. It could be simply that, parents, the kids decide not to come to school and can't get them there. Or, it could be from, doctor's excuses or from any number of, excuses.
But these are all unexcused, just so we're,
A lot of
the majority of
the
them are.
majority of them are unexcused.
Outside, like the 71 had 19 unexcused, I think.
The unexcused is to the right.
Right.
Gotcha, okay, but yeah, the vast majority of them are unexcused. Well, in some, it's about 50-50, but, okay.
And then there's some that are all
All
excused,
excused, all excused, yeah.
This was, and the reason I asked Scott to do this is just so that you guys kind of, a snapshot about what comes in every quarter. And so and there's another piece of this is when you come in at 9 weeks, it's hard hard for them to catch up and get their academics and go from a regular schedule to an alternative or virtual school, and then all of a sudden, they gotta achieve everything and get their grades. So coming in at the semesters, whether it's the beginning or at the mid-year, they're coming in with whatever they finished off, so they have their credits from their previous school, and they're bringing credits too, so they're starting fresh each semester.
So my question, and I'll hush after this, do you think that this policy change right here would help you be moving in the right direction?
I believe so, yes. I believe it does a couple of things. One, it makes them actually think about coming in. There's only 2 windows to come in, so you really need to do your homework before you come in. It can't just be because, right before fall break, something happened, there was a big fight in the cafeteria, and, hey, we're gonna come over there, we're gonna get away from that. You've got to do your homework on that. Also, a lot of those kids, for Q4 and also Q2, they were coming in with unrecoverable grades from their own school. If they come in with a 25 from Buckhorn or Hazel Green or Spartan, there's not enough points in our 9 weeks to get them to a passing grade. So they already know, they're not going to pass that quarter. So that's been an issue for a lot of them at Q2 and Q4 coming in. Especially when you miss that many days, they're behind, to say the least. I do think it just puts another layer of teeth in it, saying, again, we are different. If there are reasons why you can't be at your zone school 5 days a week, 7 hours a day, then we can work with you. But if you're, just trying to get out of something, we're not the school for it.
I guess that's what I was asking. Do you think that that's enough teeth in it?
I think it's a great start.
Okay.
I think it's a great start. It's a lot better than what we've got, which is everybody come on and they're ours.
Okay.
Good questions?
Yeah, just to Mr. Brooks' point, I'll stop talking. I don't know if it needs to be stated, but something along the lines of the purpose, to Ms. Bates' point, to the purpose of Virtual Academy, and it's not designed to try to circumvent, just something in there so parents understand and the board also understands for future reference like this. It's designed for students to perform and to exceed and excel at high levels. It's not designed to evade or get out of going to your home school. I don't know how you say it, but something maybe in the narrative portion of the structure of it, just to let folks know, just hey, this is not an off ramp to get away from responsibility of being a good student and go to school.
And one thing I do want to make sure that the board's aware of is that Mr. McMicken is working a lot closer with our high school principals and trying to. I don't want to say mend fences, but the previous administration there was a little bit of more of a button heads between our high school principals and the virtual academy administration, and Mr. McMicken is really trying to mend those relationships with our high school principals and realize that this is the 6th high school. It's there's 6 of us, and we're all in this together and trying to build that relationship. So there's been a lot of strides made with that, with our high school principals getting a little bit more, on board together. So that's another positive that's come out of this so far. Any other questions about this? If you all are good with this, then I'll send this down to policy review just to start getting their ideas and their thought processes. And y'all can email me with any ideas or thoughts that you have about it as well. You ready, sir, to move
Yeah,
on?
well, I was gonna say, before we move to the special session, did you want to give an update on some of the sports that are happening around right now? Some
I
of the
sure
games
will.
and stuff?
I'd also like to recognize the chairman's with us tonight, Mr. McCutcheon. Thank you for joining us. We appreciate it, sir. So we've had four teams competing in softball this past couple days. We've had 2 of them already eliminated, but we still have 2 that are fighting for their lives right now. We got Madison County High that's still in there, and they're playing this evening. If they win this, they'll go into the championship round and make it to state. And Hazel Green High School is also playing right now, and if they win the second game, they'll be competing for the region championship, and they'll be also going to state. So we have 2 left there. We had very successful track and field. A matter of fact, Coach Gilstrap at Hazel Green High School was Coach of the Year for 6A track this year. So that was a neat treat for them. And we have a bunch of track athletes down there. We had very competitive soccer season this year. We've taken Randolph to a couple double overtimes in order, we didn't fare well in those, but we were right on the verge in the Elite 8 appearances, and so that was something good there, for soccer. And then track has been the other one for right now. And we also have some that are still playing in the golf, that we still have some golfers that are still competitive. So spring sports are wrapping up. We should be done here in the next couple weeks. We got graduation in 2 weeks from tonight, first day of graduations. So you should have you guys received your invitations at your homes yet?
In the
Yeah.
mail? Yep.
Yeah. It's probably there, Ms. Bates.
Check again.
Yeah. That's it, sir?
You ready to move on to administrative items?
Yes, sir.
Oh, well, we gotta
Special
approve this,
session.
yeah, go into special session.
You ready?
Yeah.
I recommend approval of the agenda dated May 7th, 2024.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Do I have any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Administrative items?
I recommend approval of the committee to rename Madison County High School Board, Madison County School System Board Facilities as submitted, and that would be a committee for Buckhorn, a committee for Hazel Green, and a committee for the new McKee Road School.
Motion.
Those are the committees.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Do I have any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I recommend approval of the textbook committee's vote to adopt the Alabama State Board of Education approved list, along with the off-list items from Melody Cengage and National Restaurant Association as submitted.
Motion.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Do I have any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I recommend approval of the contracts for services as submitted.
Motion.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Do I have any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I recommend approval of the personnel items as submitted.
Motion.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Do I have any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I recommend approval of the supplemental contracts as submitted.
Motion.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Do I have any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That's it for the board meeting. So before we go,
Well, we have number 5, we have a request to address the board. Is that?
oh, they canceled.
She canceled.
Yeah,
Yes. Gotcha.
sorry.
Okay.
Before I entertain a motion for an executive session for us,
Student matter.
for a student matter, does anybody have anything for the good of the board? All right, then after the executive session, we'll just be voting on the student matter. So you're more than welcome to stay if you need to or want to. If not, we appreciate everybody coming out. But I'll entertain a motion for an executive session.
Motion.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye. We're going to executive session.